call the Select Board meeting for the Town of Essex for Monday, March 20th, 2023 to order. First item on the agenda, are there any agenda additions or changes from staff?
None from staff.
Okay. Any requests from board members?
Spelling errors have been sent.
No spelling errors for the minutes yet. Great. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay, so no changes. So let's move on to public to be heard. Public to be heard is a time on the agenda where attendees can address the board on town business that's not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak during public to be heard, you can either raise your hand in the room or use the raise hand feature in the Zoom application. To find that raise hand feature, you can float your cursor down to the bottom of your screen. You'll find there's a button that says reactions. If you click on that, it'll offer you the opportunity to raise your hand. So do I have anyone who would like to speak during public to be heard? Don't see any hands in the room. And I don't see any hands online. Okay, so let's move to the first business item. Discussion and potential action on Vermont Energy Code and Department of Energy grant application. Do we have anybody to speak to that?
Let's see. I don't see John or Will online. Marguerite is there. Marguerite, do you have anything to specify on that one?
I don't have a bunch to add. I was hoping John was going to try and be here for that, but I guess he's maybe not here quite yet. So maybe he'll pop in, but I don't have a ton to add than what's there. I know we were going to ask specifically about staff involvement to John tonight to help clarify your question, Andy, but I don't have an answer to it, I guess, at this point. So
I guess basically we received a request from John Alden, who's Planning Commission alternate for the town. He's a Essex Junction resident. Been engaged with the community. He's working with the Energy Futures Group, which is looking to reach out to the state to try to get stricter energy code standards and inspections in place. So we got the request last week. The Energy Committee was able to meet with John Alden at their meeting last week and vet it, and they recommend that the Select Board endorse the project, which would then go to the state, and you'd be a voice of support for that.
my understanding too is that that letter is a template. I don't know about altering it if you didn't want to put all of that in there. I'm not sure, but maybe that would be an option. But he was just, that was sent to John afterward. He sent that after he sent the other stuff too, because it's obviously a fresh, and it was very fast in coming for what others might be signing. So.
Right. Is there a deadline that they're looking for us to sign this?
It is coming up pretty quickly, which is why we get it on the agenda tonight. I think it's sometime this week. Is that right, Marguerite?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do we want to amend the agenda and move this to later on so that we can potentially have John here rather than?
Not a bad idea, and I can try to get in touch with John. Oh.
Can I ask a question? Nowhere through any of the information there's any cost. Not only does it not say how much staff time's involved, but there's also no cost for this.
Yep.
I'm really concerned, given the tightness of the budget.
I think Andy's got a good suggestion to put it to later in the agenda. I can try to reach out to John Alden. I'll shoot him an email, see if he's available. The way that I read it is that it's no cost. It's just a endorsement from the town. Andy mentioned and noticed that it would request some support from the town for communication, outreach. I think that's something that we pretty much do anyways. It's not a huge lift to promote something if it's as simple as just getting the word out that standards have increased. But again, without knowing a whole lot more information, I can't speak to exactly what it would take or not take.
So do we have to be explicit if we defer or if we change the agenda? Can we move it until such time as someone's available to speak about it, and then insert it as we can? So I will go ahead and make the motion that we modify the agenda to move business item 5A to an appropriate time when representation is here to speak to it.
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion on that?
I just have a comment or a question, I should say. Is that not the right thing to do since the agenda's already been approved
We didn't vote on it.
on the
We
agenda?
didn't, we.
'Cause there were no changes.
Because there were no changes, we didn't do a vote.
Okay.
But,
You can also vote to amend the agenda during the meeting if something comes up.
Okay.
You can do that.
any other
I just don't hear any
questions or concerns? Yeah, just
future
make sure we're following
backlash if we
procedure.
did
yeah,
something
yeah.
that wasn't. That's it.
Okay, so we are voting to move the business item 5A to later in the agenda when appropriate representation here is available to speak to it. I guess hopefully that happens. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Hey,
Motion passes 4-1. And if someone shows up to speak to that, we'll return to it. Okay, let's move on to business item 5B, discussion about town meeting debrief. So there's a memo in the agenda. Thank you, staff, for putting together a what I consider a fantastic event. I guess the intent here is to ask for feedback. Are there any comments that board members would like to make around town meeting? Either how it happened this year or how we might want to do it in the future. Do you have comments? Ken?
I always have a comment. The spotlights were quite distracting. And the other suggestion I would have is maybe have some mobile mics versus fixed mics. I think you might get more people that would speak. If you, I would suggest maybe having the Girl or Boy Scouts with a mic, a couple mics, and move them around to the audience. That way, people just raise their hand, and you could give them a mic, and they could speak. And
Yeah, so there were, we actually did ask for that, and I'm not sure what happened with that, whether we missed the communication or whether it was dropped later. I don't know what, but yeah, that's there's also the just trying to explain why things might have happened the way they did. Not trying to justify that or say it's the right way, but town meeting TV likes to be able to point to see the person who's asking the question. It was just another piece to that. But yeah, those are good comments. But yeah, the spotlights definitely were. We had a very hard time telling whether anybody was asking a question. Anything else? We ran out of popcorn.
Ran out of popcorn. That was gonna be my comment. Promised free popcorn. We ran out. I'd say make sure we have enough popcorn next year.
I'm sorry, I did too much quality control earlier in the day.
I had a comment about. I think me and you talked about this a little bit, but maybe next year just, spreading the questions out a little bit. That way, Andy doesn't have to answer all the questions, and if there's certain things that some of us are working on in different aspects of the select board, whether it be Essex Best or me on the rescue or whatever it may be. As
but
chair
next
and
year
vice
it's only
chair.
going to be a budget discussion because everything else will be by Australian ballot.
People can still ask
Yeah,
questions.
about what's
Sure.
going on,
Yeah.
especially if we have any other articles on the Australian ballot. I don't know if it's just like
Right.
the work hold off, and
Right. Yeah. And
I felt like there was more. I felt like there was more that could have been said
Mm-hmm.
in response to some of the questions.
Yeah, and I will, fully confess that I probably didn't hog the microphone.
We didn't have a plan.
And
so-
I also kind of followed the model that I've seen in the past, and we never talked about it, how to handle all of that beforehand. So this is a good discussion. Yeah, if others would like to, if you wanted to be a more round the table discussion rather than just the chair, I'm whoever the chair is next year, we can ask them to share it up. Yeah, I get that. And I didn't experience how hard the seats were because I was barely in mine.
They were hard. That was one of my leading reasoning for us being able to answer a couple questions was get up and get
Get out of
that
the
chair out
chair.
of your back.
Yeah. I write down chairs. Chairs and shares.
I thought it went really well though. I got a lot of positive feedback from people that I know that went there. So
Yeah, we'll go to the public in a second. Any other board comments or questions? The one thing that I've heard a few times or said a few times was that we, because all of our business has gone to the ballot, we have to have a informational meeting. But I guess I still have a question about when that has to be. Because our charter says that it follows statute. Statute says it's within 3 days of your vote.
So you could technically do it on
And so I
Saturday.
think we still have to do it within 3 days of town meeting day, not the 10 days that I think has been.
We can get a legal opinion here from VLCT. The way I read it is the 10 days. I could
But our
very well be
charter,
wrong.
the charter
The
says-
charter references town meeting, and it says that any business being conducted at town meeting not by Australian ballot has to be within 3 days. Is how I read it.
Okay, yeah,
And so
yeah,
the-
we
and so
should,
if there's no business being conducted, it becomes completely an informational meeting. But we will get
Yeah,
confirmation on that.
yeah, I'm sure, yes, it'll be an informational meeting, but I think the question is when you have to have it.
Correct.
I think we still have to have it within 3 days of our vote because of our charter.
Mhm.
The statute, the latter portion of the statute, and I know it was sent to me, if I could find it here, says that if the town has voted to do it within 3 days, you still have to do it within 3 days. And our charter, I don't know, yeah, we'd have to sort out. If the town has voted to start its annual meeting on any of the 3 days immediately preceding the first Tuesday in March, the hearing under this subsection may be held in conjunction with that meeting. Okay, maybe, okay, yeah.
But we'll get
It looks a
interpretation
little
on
gray.
it. Yeah,
Excuse
Okay.
agreed.
All right, any other board member comments? I agree with a lot of what was in the memo. The venue was fantastic. I think it was I think it was a good place to have it. I really enjoyed. I think the session out front, or the opportunity to talk to departments and committees out front, was good. Socializing, banding people as they came in really helped, because we were able to start essentially on time. That's the first. I've never seen that happen before. Usually we're trying to shepherd people through the check-in process. That was offered by the Essex experience. That wasn't our idea.
Oh, very nice.
They said that's pretty much how they deal with events when they have them. They check people on the way in the door rather than into the auditorium.
Worked well.
Okay, anything else? Kendall?
I really do like the town clerk's suggestion of mailing an informational postcard in January. I think that would be a really good thing.
Right. As an alternative to mailing ballots, so that yeah, I did have a neighbor that panicked the day before and said, "I never got a ballot." And I said, "Well, did you ask for one?" And I said, "Well, they're supposed to come, aren't they?" And so I think there may be some people that didn't understand that they weren't being mailed. So if they get a postcard, right, saying you have to request it, that could help. But
Yeah.
I don't know how many people that affected.
It was my understanding that we were mailing out an annual report this year,
Yeah, the annual report went out. Yeah.
because I never got one. I know a couple other people that didn't get them, so I didn't know if that information was in the annual report, or if the annual report was printed before we made that decision. Because I was looking for it for a while, and then I asked my wife again. I'm like, "We never got anything from the." No, She gives me everything that's from the town or whatever. So
Hmm.
I asked a couple of my neighbors over on Hanley Lane, they never got them either.
Hmm.
So I don't know how many people got an annual report. I guess we could add that question on our survey.
Yeah, I'll try to check because it should have gone to every household.
Right.
Well, and understanding the recent
Mailing issues.
mailing issues through the post office, that may have something to do with it.
I just thought I'd mention that because I was thinking about that when I saw the the message from Susan. And I was like,
Mhm.
I never even got one. I forgot to bring it up.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll go to the public. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, Margaret.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I thought on the whole, the meeting went very well. I got there too late to go around and visit the booths, and it was very crowded by the time I got there. I did ask John Sonic about the microphone. I mentioned it to him, and he said they'd offered him a microphone, and he didn't think he was going to need it. But the way it was set up, the people in the middle of the rows just, they had to be incredibly assertive to get up and go to the end of the row and climb out to the microphone. So it would have been nice to have the microphones. And it would have, I'm sure that the spotlights on the stage were annoying, but the lighting in the room was also so dim that it was really hard to read the annual report if you had one. So do a lighting check next time. Anyway, but thank you for a great meeting.
All right. Thanks, Margaret. All right. I don't see any other hands.
And I guess,
Go ahead.
just to follow up on that, it wasn't, I mean, the spotlight was irritating, but I would have preferred the house lights to come up so I could actually see who was speaking. You know, to note body language and, you know, just acknowledge who was speaking. So I think that in conjunction with maybe cutting back on the spotlights a little bit would make it easier to see the person speaking.
And to add to that, a lot of the spotlight was the actual theater screen where it was presenting, because all of our bodies were in the bottom of the screen. So I don't know if there's a way that they could have risen the. Because we were in the
Yeah,
film, we were getting the. Because
Yeah,
I know there was
I
a
think that was-
spotlight moving around, but we also had the film at us the whole time. Because I noticed that at one point, I turned around, and I could see everybody's silhouettes in the screen, and I'm like, that's why it's so bright. We got 60-foot of television shining at us.
Yeah, we that's something that I think what we would need to do is put a blank bar at the bottom of the presentation. So I think that's something that we
Let's have it be dark on there.
we need to and that it was discussed, and I think it's a valid point to because then we're blocking part of the screen too.
Right.
Any comments or anything from staff? Greg or Marguerite?
Mostly positive feedback. I think all good suggestions. Some of the stuff we had in mind too about the lighting was one of the things that we took away. Agreed that the chairs on stage could have been a little bit more comfortable. But I think all in all it went well, and really kudos to Tammy and the other staff who pulled it off and made it happen. We're not planning on doing a step in and come together event this year like we did last year. We really saw the showcase at town meeting as an opportunity to draw attention to our boards and committees, our departments, let them interact and engage with our residents. So we think we'll continue that again next year, especially that it seems to be well received. So we want to kind of use that and build that portion of town meeting up to try to highlight what the work that our boards and committees do.
And technically, there were more people there than came into the step out.
Correct. Yep. Yep. So that was some of our takeaways. Otherwise, Tammy's memo, I think, was great in the packet and really captured a lot of what we went through and thoughts and reactions to it. So thanks for the feedback.
Yeah. I guess I could have emailed that too, but I guess one of my other questions that I had, I might have missed it in here, but do we know how much it cost? Yeah, like in total.
It was about $1,000
In total for everything.
Yep.
Which isn't bad at all.
That was all the support. I think we had paid a little bit more for the popcorn, but
But it's
Venue,
way
the
too
venue and the
much.
support was, I know. The venue and the support was $1,000.
Awesome. Well, money well spent.
All right. Let's move on then.
John Alden is here now.
He is here now. All right, John. So, John, we your agenda item: discussion and potential action on Vermont Energy Code and Department of Energy grant application. Would you like to speak to that?
And thanks for having me. It's an interesting situation in that the state of Vermont doesn't really have a great package of administrative material in place to deal with the energy code enforcement or compliance or training or any of that. Most of it's done through Efficiency Vermont, which isn't really a state agency. It's a taxpayer, well, ratepayer funded energy utility requirement. I'm an architect. I deal with building codes. I deal with all the rest of the codes that are related to building a building, fire code, life safety code, mechanical, plumbing, etc. And the one that's not actually in that package is the energy code, even though it's still out there. A number of us around, architects and engineers and other tradespeople have been trying to come up with a way to fix this for a while, a couple of years. And there's a grant application to a DOE offer. There's $250 million out there nationally to try and help communities achieve better energy policy and results. And so we thought this was a great fit. One of the people that we work with frequently, who happens to also write proposals and the Vermont Energy Code on behalf of his firm for Efficiency Vermont and the Department of Public Service, has put a grant application together as a proposal. The proposal, first pass was accepted well and encouraged to continue to a full application. So that's where we are now. The grant application is for $4 million, almost $5 million, over a period of 3 years to help the state of Vermont get the correct players at the table and try and hammer out a more workable energy code strategy, which includes the administrative end, which is not really part of what the state does now. And we're in support of that at the American Institute of Architects Vermont chapter, and we're out drumming up support for this application. I think some materials were shared with you. If you have any questions, I'd love to help you out, but at the moment they're just looking for people to essentially endorse the application.
All right. Thanks, John. Any questions?
So if the grant doesn't go through, then this is a no idea, because financially most towns won't be able to invest in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's some interesting things going on. There's also a bill in the Vermont legislature that's trying to go after a similar process where they would fund, they have $125,000 in the bill as currently written, that would also go towards funding a study committee to try and figure out how to do this. So if the grant, I believe the way it's worded is if the grant is successful, then the state doesn't have to pay that money from the taxpayers, and they would just piggyback onto the grant application and get the results of a much more robust study program and recommendations from this grant application to provide a process that works for Vermont. So yes, there's other things. There are two options for us. The House bill, we're going to keep after them to try and support the House bill. But I think the better option is really the almost $5 million that would come from the feds to help us all through this.
Thank you.
Ethan, go ahead.
What bill is that money in, the 125,000? Is that an S? Is that
Well,
the,
it was originally written in H 332, and we understand that it's been added to the so-called housing omnibus bill, which is S 100. Although I haven't seen that show up on their website yet, but that was information as of the last Wednesday. I was down in Montpelier testifying in front of the House Committee on H 332. And I think we heard during our testimony or shortly thereafter that there may be a move to add that into S 100. So either way, we'll be supporting that, and hopefully that all sort of gets wrapped up into this grant application in the optimistic view that it's successful.
I was just curious. I guess I might not have the right memory of the bill, but I didn't know if this was a standalone bill from the housing side of things for code enforcement, or if this was wrapped into the clean energy heating standard that will affect many residents.
It's actually a standalone bill. H 332 was a standalone bill. The only thing it was trying to do was get money for a study committee to provide direction on the energy code. There is a separate bill for some enforcement in housing. This is not the same thing, and there are a lot of provisions in the S 100 bill already that we generally feel are more structured towards the housing side of things, whereas H 332 really has nothing to do with housing, except that residential construction would also be included in the package. So right now, the only buildings that have any oversight whatsoever are commercial buildings on the energy code, and that's only because architects and engineers are required through their licenses to comply. And so when I design a building, and my office right here in the town does at Scott and Partners, we do all commercial construction for the most part. So every time we issue a set of drawings, we're telling the state that it complies with the state energy code. Residential projects have a guidebook, a handbook, but people, not every house has to have an architect, and not every builder knows what the rules are. So it's a little bit gray area for us. We don't like that situation. We think that the state's interest in having people comply with the state energy rules would be much improved if there was a better system to help people train and learn and comply and have a code official of some kind be involved. But that's a long way down the road. We got to get the study committee together first to kind of dive into this, bring all the appropriate parties together, legislators, builders, designers, architects, engineers, and sort out how we're going to do this. First step, to get everyone at the table and start talking about it.
Kendall.
So usually grants, the initial grant, you get a good amount of money, but then you run into a lot of costs to actually implement it. So I'm concerned that there are only 2 municipalities that have signed on so far. We have a number that it might potentially save, but I'm much more interested in what it would cost, because basically this is setting up an entire new department for enforcement with everything that comes along with that. So it's also all the big players that I'm seeing in the letter that are interested at the moment. And I'm not sure that maybe a local ordinance might work better for enforcement for like residential, because at least then local folks would have more of a say in some of the rules, and I would say that your 87% compliance on the commercial is where you want to be. The residents, I'm sure they have reasons of why they don't comply, and probably a big part of that is cost. So I'm concerned that this is a big step that initially there's not a cost to it, but it could have significant costs to everybody in the future. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? John, in the letter that's included that you're asking us to sign or consider, there's a paragraph in there that talks about the municipality providing support by working with the project team to promote energy code outreach activities and providing connections to community members. Is how much, if we sign this letter as it's written, what are we committing to?
My understanding is that the commitment is to support the grant application, which includes the development of a process that would ultimately be recommended for adoption by the legislature. So there's really not a commitment on your behalf to go do anything until the process has gone through the whole legislative process when it gets there, because we don't even have a recommendation yet. Someone would have to take that recommendation to the legislature and get it sponsored in a bill, and then all of that due course and due process would happen before it ever becomes real. And if it did, there would be a statewide agreement brokered by the legislators that this is in the best interest of Vermont. And we don't know what that looks like yet. Cost has been a constant discussion of this. The grant application doesn't cost you anything. Compliance with the energy code is already required. It's just not being done. And compliance with some type of state. I mean, we have goals that are set already. So does the town. The town and the state both have energy goals, and you can look at pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. I don't see why we would want to be out of compliance with our own stated goals and objectives, personally. But there are people that look at the cost of that and say, I don't think so. It's already a law. I don't really understand how they get to say that, but that's happening. So this doesn't really commit you to do anything other than what you're supposed to do already. So I don't really understand what the issue is. I don't have that luxury. I have to do it. That's my job. My license is about doing it right. And it seems to me it's not exactly energy forward to say I'm not going to.
Okay, so to be clear, what's being pursued here is enforcement of a standard. It's not the development of a new standard.
It's not really the enforcement of a standard. There is no process at the moment to look at the energy code and energy requirements in the whole. They're being written and updated every 3 years and just put out there, and that's it. It's like, okay, well, if Vermont is serious about energy and the use of energy and reaching its energy goals, there really needs to be an entire package that goes with that. It's not only about enforcement, although the goal would be to improve our compliance. The goal would be to have an entire system that's in place that treats energy and the energy code just like every other building code out there. So nobody knows what the right answer is yet. That's part of the debate. Nobody can agree even now, they're arguing about it already, and we're just saying, hey, let's talk about it, and we're already, we've got quite a bit of, pushback just on the concept of putting a process in place. So I think that's part of the grant application. It's part of H332. It just simply says, we're going to form a study committee and we're going to get everybody together and we're going to talk about how we want to do this. And it might not look like how New Hampshire does it or how New York does it or anybody else. It's going to be tailored to what's best for Vermont. And then that will be a recommendation. Has no teeth, has to go somewhere else before it gets implemented. So really, it's just an endorsement to say, hey, let's talk about it.
Tracy.
So, from what I'm understanding, is that this would just be supporting trying to pull down grant funding to pay for a study committee that the legislature is thinking about doing anyhow. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Ethan.
I hate to even say this, but basically what's being proposed is that they want to create a requirement that all towns have a building inspector, all towns have an energy inspector, which is going to be a direct correlation on the town. It's going to be a cost to the town. It's going to be a cost to the taxpayers. It's going to be a cost to anybody who tries to build or remodel in this town. And then if, as is quoted, if this is a law, it would be enforced. And it hasn't been enforced in the state of Vermont up until this point. And it's tied into all these heating bills and this clean energy initiative for 2035 that they created that they cannot achieve. And they have no plan to achieve it. And if we sign on to this, we're committing to something that's going to put a huge impact on the residents of this town without a plan on how or what it's going to look like. Because exactly what he just said, if you have these codes that need to be enforced like them, there are no licensed carpenters in Chittenden County besides Burlington. There is no requirement from the state of Vermont to be a licensed carpenter. So now you'd have license enforcings on builders in Essex. You'd have a licensing for the energy. You'd have to have somebody to follow through with all these processes in your planning commission. So there's so much unknown that's not being presented that it's really hard for me personally to say that I support something that I don't see a layout of what it's actually going to look like. And there is no layout as far as the legislator. That's why it hasn't happened yet. So my personal feeling on it is see what the legislator comes up with and then revisit it. But until it's supported and explained from the state on how it's going to be supported, paid for, and implemented, I don't feel right to support something that I don't know anything about.
See, and I look at it from a different perspective that we don't know what we don't know. And this is saying, yeah, leverage this grant funding from the federal government to go find out and get those answers.
Right.
And inform the legislature of those answers and form a plan that would give them the information that they need in order to discuss further and put in place an agency that would be designated as the enforcement authority.
And right in this proposal that our name would be on, it sets a goal already for 7 years. It says 2030. It says by 2030. So you're putting your name on something that says we will achieve this by 2030. Shall they get this grant funding? And we want the resilient and efficient codes implementation.
But that's the state's goal already. That's not impacted by this project.
Proposal. This is Energy Future Group's proposal to the U.S. Department of Energy.
I don't know what document you're in.
I'm on the letterhead from the select board, which would be the select board. The first paragraph. is that you support their initiative and the bipartisan infrastructure law, resilient and efficient codes implementation. And then it says to go on of a target of net zero ready construction of all newly constructed buildings by 2030.
The proposed team will work towards enabling achievement to achieve the state's compliance target. So I don't think that's going to change whether we sign on or not. It's the state's
Well, I agree.
target whether or not this happens. It just helps gather that information beforehand and brings all of the people to the table to have those conversations and receive that information. It's a planning initiative, basically.
Right. Which has been proposed by the state since 2015, and they haven't done anything to work towards it.
Yeah, so this is to pay for a study that will start, it's to support a study that needs to happen, yes. And I think John said that the state would pay for it at a much lower funding level than this grant would support. And so the work that's described here, I think, will happen in either case. It's a matter of who pays for it. If they don't get the grant, it's all from the taxpayers. If you get the grant, then the grant pays for the study.
Well, one's for $5 million, one's for $125,000, so there's a big difference.
Right. So you get what you pay for, maybe. I don't know. So, kind of.
Can I ask how many municipalities this has been presented to?
John, can you answer that?
I can give it a try, and that's we on the AIA Vermont. I'm on the public policy committee, and we're there's only 7 or 8 of us, and we're trying to go to the towns that we're from, but we're all basically most of us are in Chittenden County or nearabouts. So our reach is limited. We don't have the resources to go trot around the state and try and do this, although Energy Futures might. So I can tell you I'm only doing 2, Essex and Essex Junction. But I don't believe the state has been canvassed to, and only 2 municipalities decided to sign on. I think it's just a matter of trying to find resources to go out and talk to them. And then you can see from the list of people that have, or organizations that have signed up already, there's a pretty decent list there. We think it helps the application at the national level if we, as a state, are supportive of this process, and if municipalities are involved as well as other organizations. But it's by no means been an exhaustive campaign.
Thank you.
Any other board member comments or questions? Let me open it up to the public then. Any public comments or questions? I don't see any hands in the room.
I just want to make one more comment that one of the people that signed on there is Burlington Department of Permitting and Inspections, so be prepared to have the Essex Department of Permitting and Inspections.
This
And
study
that
won't-
was
this study won't create
locally
that.
that was locally passed by Burlington. They wanted to have their own enforcement.
Mhm.
But shall this make it to a state level, that will be a requirement by towns if it's
I
implemented at the
don't
state
think
level.
I don't think you can connect those dots. There's no process in place right now that shows the state telling municipalities it's on them to do this. Burlington has had their own enforcement for a long time. They like it that way. Essex can do Essex, Burlington can do Burlington. I don't believe that there's any preconceived notion of how this is going to work. I have my own personal one, which is that, and I think the AIA has already written a paper on this, supporting the notion that the energy code gets treated just like the rest of the building codes through the fire marshal's office. So all of the pieces of the puzzle that go into building a building are handled by the professionals that are already doing it. And that wouldn't be any different than your building inspections now for commercial buildings, which all get done by the fire marshal for our area, and not because the municipality had to come up with another person. If you want to create another person, you can, and many communities around the state have done it. South Burlington and Burlington are your two closest that have their own fire and building safety inspection people, but it's by no means required by the state.
So I guess I have a question, but so the fire marshal's coming in and checking the insulation rating on the windows
They don't do it now. They won't. They're not.
on a
actually
commercial
the ones
building?
in charge.
If that's a
There's nobody-
requirement for a commercial building, though, who does it on a commercial building?
They'll check whether glass is tempered or something, but they're not checking to see whether it meets the energy code. Nobody's doing that.
Even on a commercial side?
Nope. The
It's not a
fire
requirement.
safety has said you can't,
Said.
you know, if you don't give us the whole package, we don't feel comfortable doing it. Our resources are already committed to the things that we're required to do. You know, they work out of the Division of Public Safety, and the energy code is put out there by the Department of Public Service, and they don't necessarily coordinate together. So, public service writes the energy code, and then that's it.
My understanding is that anytime there's a new construction, whether it's residential or commercial, that before it can get occupied, somebody has to submit a certificate of building energy standards, either called the RBs or the CBs for residential or commercial. That has to get filed and signed that says, you know, this building complies with the state energy code. But there's nobody checking to ensure that it does. And so there's that gap between the law saying it has to meet a certain standard. I'm not sure if it's the builder or the owner or somebody saying that it meets the standard, but there's nobody in between saying yes it does or no it doesn't. It's basically an honor system.
That is correct.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, given the fact that it does not appear that it's going to cost us any money to sign the letter, and the fact that the state budget, that 125,000 or whatever they put in there, is not going to go very far if it even gets approved, and the letter authorizes them to go ahead and try for the $5 million grant, I would make the motion that we have our town manager sign the letter of commitment.
Thank you, Don. Do we have a second?
Just a suggestion, instead of making it a letter of commitment, because we're not really committing to anything,
Okay.
friendly amendment to vote in favor of being listed among the municipalities in support of the project.
That works for me. I was just reading what it said there.
Okay, so does that also constitute a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so, we have some discussion on that, so, two questions, I guess, first one's to staff. Is staff okay with supporting if this goes through? Well, I guess I better ask the other question first. John, do you need us to sign that letter that you sent us, or do you need, is the proposal is that we be listed as a supporting municipality, or do you need the letter with the word commitment in it?
You can make your own letter. You can use that as just a template. You're free to create the language you see fit. If it merely says we support the grant application, I'm sure that's fine.
Okay, so then I guess is pleased to support.
Support the project. Outreach activities.
Hard to rewrite a letter on the fly.
Yeah, and it was. I was just reading from the memorandum. My comments weren't specific to it being called a letter of commitment. In the title, I don't see anything in the letter that specifically says we're committing to anything other than participating with the project team.
Right. So then, so your wording change suggestion was with regard to the wording of the motion that we're approving, or did you want something changed?
How about I withdraw my motion and start again? Make the motion that we authorize the town manager to sign a letter of support for the grant application.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Tracy. That clarifies things. Now I'm going to ask my question to Greg. You okay with that? Given the kind of minimal description of what it means to support the project by working with the project team.
I am okay with that. I think there's enough flexibility in that paragraph, committing our support, that we can do what we can take on at the moment, or whenever that moment comes. I think if it's doing a little bit to get the word out and tell people it's coming, tell people it's out there, that's just part of daily business. We can do that.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, so the vote is to authorize the town manager to sign a letter of support for the grant application. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 3-2. So, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
And let's move on to the next agenda item. Okay. Business item 5C, discussion and potential action to schedule Select Board strategic planning work session. Greg or Marguerite, I'll talk to that.
Sure. So we did a work session last year, it was in May, shortly after the organizational meeting that you always hold in April. It was a chance for the board to get together. At that time, you're meeting each other, are pretty new to your relationship with each other as a board. So we took it as an opportunity to get together, update you on what staff was working on, what's on our radar, hear from you as to what you wanted to accomplish in the coming year. I think we've done a pretty good job about chipping away at that work. Marguerite has a reading file item later in the packet about what we've done, what we've accomplished over the past year. But I figured that let's make it an annual thing. Let's try to do something again this spring and have a chance to do some strategic planning, put together a work plan for the coming year. Reached out to all of you. Thank you for your responses as to when you were available. It seemed like there were a couple of Saturdays and a Monday evening that would work. Staff's recommendation is to stick with the Monday meeting schedule. This would be 3 back-to-back Mondays, but we can certainly do a Saturday, the April 29th or May 6th, if that's preferable to the board. Just wanted to bring it to you and try to get something on the books so we can start to do a little bit more planning for planning.
Planning plan. Any comments or questions from
The
board
only
members?
comment I had was last year we spent a good part of the day.
I think it ended up being 4 or 5
yeah, that
hours.
was 5 hours,
Yeah.
and I just worry about starting that at 6:30 p.m.
Mhm.
I'm open to any dates. I just wanted to throw that out there that I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want any of you to feel rushed if we get into a conversation about something and want to continue to discuss it a little bit. You know what I mean?
So you suggest we start earlier?
No, not on a Monday. I can't do weekdays any earlier than 6:30. I can't.
Okay. Okay.
So
That was going to be my suggestion. Start earlier,
Earlier.
May 8th
on
would
the
be
8th.
my preference. But
I mean, how early? 4:30.
no,
Feed my cows for me, and I'll
an
come right here
extra
after work.
hour, extra half hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's just 5 hours. I would plan for at least 4 hours, right? So
Well, I think the proposal here is 3.
3.
Yeah, so
And that's flexible. I, was thinking
and
it could
we
be
could,
three.
we could take as long, right?
Probably a little bit more informal this year than it was last year, but we can take it as it comes and block off 3 hours if we run 4.
It's not going to be moderated this year.
Facilitated.
Or
Wasn't,
facilitated. I
wasn't
mean.
planning on it, but if the
Okay.
board wants to go, that route
No, I
again.
think it'll go quicker. So,
Yeah, because I think having to wait for the facilitator to type all that in and say, well, do I understand what you're saying? It took a lot longer than if we had just had the open discussion.
And we're all a lot smarter than we were a year ago.
right.
Speak for yourself. I think my brain cells
Not
are getting
afraid to
old.
argue with you now.
I would speak in favor of Monday, May 8th.
Yeah, that's fine. 5:30.
At 5:30.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Anybody, I was thinking 6, but
6.
6 is good.
6 compromise. There we go. Meet in the middle.
Make up your minds, guys. 6
do
o'clock?
it.
6 o'clock.
is that 6 o'clock work for everybody on a Monday evening?
5:36 works fine for me on that day.
If we start at 6, I'm leaving at 10 though.
So
I'm serious.
So is there any?
I
any
can't
constraints
be up
on
that
staff
late during the
with
week.
regard to 5:30 or?
We've been
6?
really good with the select board this year, so.
Anybody? It's in.
I'm sorry.
I
Isn't
should,
that
I
what
should
we
say
are
none
right
for me.
now?
I can't speak for Marguerite.
Is it 10 or 11 now? Then we have to make a vote to continue.
Oh,
Yes,
Use
that
11 still? We should change that.
Margaret, you say you're okay with 5 or 5:30 or 6?
3.5 hours, buddy.
Okay. Is there a preference? Campbell, you
I would say 6.
want to do 6?
Yeah, 6 would be better for me too.
Just tell me when to be here.
All right.
Me too.
All right. So let's do 6 o'clock on May 8th.
Great, thank you.
You don't need any kind of motion. We just schedule it and just put it on the calendar, right?
Yep.
All righty.
Okay.
Cool. And May 8th is not too far away. If you want to start sending topics that you want to talk about to Greg, you can start accumulating that, and that'll help the timing too. If it's known what we want to talk about ahead of time. So.
Could I ask Greg to resend our list from last year or
Mhm.
directly to it? So,
It's in your minutes. It's in here.
oh, it's in the minutes?
Yep,
It's in
it's
the
in the
reading file.
reading file.
There's a progress to date.
I guess we're all set.
Thank you.
I can send the kind of calendar type product that came out of last year's session too, if that helps us. Different type of visual.
Okay.
Yep. And I've started making a list of stuff that I've heard over the past weeks and months, so I'm happy to share that. And thank you for the suggestion, Andy, to
Yeah,
send in
that,
other ideas.
that'd be perfect. That would generate some ideas.
Yeah. Right. Anything else on that?
Under here.
Okay, and this will be a public open public meeting. We're gonna do it here as a regular meeting.
I think so,
Yeah.
unless
Okay.
somebody wants to mix it up, but I was planning
Yeah.
to just do it here.
Okay. Good. Makes sense. Instead of spending money and doing it somewhere else. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Let's move on to business item 5D. Discussion about the select board meeting schedule. Our charter says we can't vote on. We can't actually set the schedule until we have our officer elections in our first meeting in April. So this is a preview of what's being proposed. There's a list of dates out there similar to the dates that we have that we followed this year, with the note that it's is it July and September each only have one meeting.
Correct, and there's a typo in there that should say the third Monday, not the second Monday for July and September.
Yeah.
So we can discuss the dates, but we can't commit to them until our next meeting.
Understanding that we can't commit to them, and also understanding that whenever there's a holiday on Monday, we're at on the same night at the same time as the school board. I would like folks to think about possibly meeting the second and fourth Tuesday. Previously, we hadn't done that because folks in the junction would have to choose between the trustees meeting, now the city council, and us. But after July 1st, they are no longer in our budget. So I would like to see us possibly move to the same night as the city council to avoid that conflict with the school board.
They're actually on Wednesdays now.
Oh, they are?
Perfect. So let's just switch up the Mondays then.
So you're talking about January, moving those, because the,
Oh, I was just,
Well, there's
Or
four,
just
there's
in
four of
general.
them.
yeah, I was just thinking about the regular cadence. But, you know,
oh,
also
oh,
it's,
I see.
yeah,
Moving all of our meetings to the second and fourth.
also thinking about staff time. If we get the agenda late on a Friday afternoon, if we have questions, if we have feedback, it only gives that day on Monday to respond. So it would give staff extra time to respond and get back to us. But I could go either way. I just wanted
What
to
if-
bring it up as a
What if we
possibility.
just switched up the 4 Tuesdays and made them Mondays? So they didn't fall on a holiday.
What?
They're Tuesday because Monday is a holiday.
Right, but we can't do the 1st and the 3rd?
Mm.
Or the 2nd and the 4th on those
I see
months?
what you mean now.
You know what I mean? Like
We
if you did the
could-
second, if you did the second Monday in February,
Yeah.
and then that'd give you a meeting right before town meeting too, which we did this year. Because February 20th isn't, that's like too far away from town meeting in my opinion.
And
This
I-
year we had a meeting the week before.
Only a week.
No, we didn't. It was
The 30th we had a meeting.
of January.
And I think for scheduling purposes, for the public, for staff, having a repeatable meeting night is helpful for
Yeah.
planning purposes. But again, I mean, I just wanted to bring it up for people to think about over the coming weeks.
Personally, I like the first and third because I have other meetings on the other Monday nights and Tuesday nights too. So
Well, that's the thing. There's 4 Tuesday night meetings this year.
So another way to look at it, but I think doesn't help Don any, I guess, would be the June 20th meeting, which is a Tuesday. There's only one meeting in July, so if you move the 20th to the following Monday and avoid the 19th holiday, you still got 2 weeks before the, or 3 weeks before the 17th. So you could space that June 20th out to address that one Tuesday, and then I was going to suggest in January that we go to the 2nd and 5th, because there's 5 Mondays in January next year, largely because we have to have another meeting that last week of January to warn town meeting.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
why not plan the meeting for that week
That's what I was thinking.
ahead of time, so that we're not having to add another meeting, and also then again it avoids the, comments I got right. Where during budget season you have meetings that conflict with the school board, and people have to decide whether to go to the town budget meeting or the school board meeting, and so I'm something to consider moving as I said, move the
Yeah.
in January, because there's 5 Wednesdays, move to the 2nd and 5th Wednesday, but then we would have another meeting right behind it on the 5th. So I don't know, just to
I like that. You could do the same with the February Tuesday. You could
same
move
with
that.
February, and then you would have a meeting right before.
But yeah,
town
if you move February to the 2nd Monday and the 4th Monday, you'd solve that problem also, and you'd solve your problem from January. And then you go right to town meeting.
So
I've lost track.
I will send you. I will send you a graphic
Basically, no Tuesdays.
that we can potentially share, or if anybody has any other thoughts on what we might need to do, then
I won't be here December 4th.
Basically, you're just moving January and February's meetings to the 2nd and 4th Monday.
that, and then the June 20th one to the following Monday, because there's a gap for the next, because there's only one meeting in July.
Yeah.
So
that,
put
would,
3 weeks between each of the meetings instead of 2 weeks and then 4 weeks or whatever the.
that works for me.
No, we can't change anything today, but
We can't change it today.
Good conversation.
We can discuss it. and we can include, I guess, and I don't know, does it affect town meeting TV?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sitting over here. We can't.
Tracy's trying to get rid of me.
No.
Yeah, you are if you change the date. So you're saying change from the 20th to the 26th, the Monday the 26th? Is that what you're saying?
Of June?
In June?
Yep.
All right.
Technically, though, it doesn't affect us. Somebody will be here.
Right. Affects you, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
We have
And then in January it would be the I guess it's the 8th.
8th and the 22nd.
Yeah,
And the
22nd.
Okay.
no, it'd be a week later. It'd be the 29th.
You want the 29th? So yeah, because there's 5 weeks, you have 2 weeks in between. So 8 and 29. Right, because they got 2 weeks
Because
in between them
you
there.
you have to warn them the town meeting that week,
Yeah,
Right. Gotcha.
or hold a special meeting like we did this year.
right. And then we had 3 meetings in a row the way it worked
Yeah,
out.
3 meetings in a row again. Yeah, right. And then move the February meetings to the 12th and the 28th. No,
26th.
6th.
right?
I like that.
And then there's time. Then you get back on the regular cadence.
Right. And then you just have a meeting, town meeting,
Yeah. So
which would be the 4th and the 5th.
I'll
Depending on that informational meeting.
right, depending on when we want to have it. You know, right. It could be the right. Could be that last meeting in February instead.
Yeah.
If we can do that. You're right.
We can't
Right.
change it up too much.
You
on
can
the
adjust it. You
old-timers,
can adjust
know?
it as we go along.
Give them a special day.
So I've got the second June meeting will become June 26th. January will become January 8th and 29th. And February will be the second and fourth Mondays, the 12th and the 26th.
That's a proposal. Yes.
If that seems to be supported by everybody, that's what we'll put in the consent agenda next week. We can always pull it out if something changes.
That works.
Okay. All right, so let's see, any other board member comments? Any public comments on that? See any hands in the room or online? So, all right. Okay, so let's see, the next business item is to be held in executive session. We have a couple of personnel things to address and Greg's evaluation. And so we'll come back to that. And so consent agenda.
Make the motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Kendall. Any discussion? I know, Don, you said that you had forwarded some spelling
Spelling
changes
errors, yeah.
to for the minutes from town meeting.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Anything else?
It was an expensive packet. There was a lot of money in this one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all those in favor of consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion or consent agenda approved 5-0. Reading file, any board member comments about anything?
I would like to thank Public Works for the wonderful job they did with our roads during that horrendous snowstorm.
Yeah. And sidewalks.
And sidewalks too, yeah.
Looks like we're in good shape for the rest of the year.
Right. Thank you for including the strategic planning update.
It's Marguerite.
Yep, Marguerite, thank you. And then also the policies that will be reviewed at our organizational meeting have been included to give extra time to take a look at them and also make them available to the public if they would like to look at them and comment. Organizational meeting will be reviewing those. If any, Irene, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, I do appreciate the heads up and advance notice on the policies.
The town meeting exit survey was a great idea. I know we've done paper surveys before and we get like 6 of them back. So sounds like we have like 50 or so responses already.
I'd have to check with Tammy. We actually, credit to Dennis Lutz, he suggested it last year, and
Oh.
we got a bunch of responses last year. Thought it was worth doing again this year, and yeah, good to know that we're getting responses already.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anything else?
I would just mention about the Chittenden Solid Waste District budget. I noted that they charge a percentage for their health insurance, or for the employees, versus what we do. They pay what, 10%?
Thought I saw that they had they were more like 3.25%.
Yeah, but it's a percentage of what the employee makes. It's not a percentage of
Oh, I missed that. Okay,
of the fee of the
I was
health
just
insurance.
okay. I read it. I'll have to read it again.
I noted that I thought that was different than what most towns do. Most towns have you pay 10% or 15%, whatever, of the health insurance premium. The district is doing it where they pay a percentage of their salary. I just wondered if there was any kind of comparison as far as the employees' pros or cons. Just a new way to look at potentially a budget item that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it again. I haven't had an opportunity to do any analysis or discuss with anybody. We do have an RFP out, I can't remember if it's an RFP or an RFQ, but we put something out recently. Travis did we have a salary study coming up, and we wanted to look at not just baseline salary, but we wanted to factor in benefits, years of service. We wanted to be a pretty comprehensive look at what other people make, what other municipalities offer, so we can have a good picture of where we sit, where we stand.
Okay.
Yep. And we want to ultimately remain a competitive place to work, desirable place to work. So
Yeah.
hopefully, yeah, I can
Yeah.
call that out.
No, I just know that most towns do a straight percentage. So if you are a Park and Rec's groundkeeper, you pay 10% of your premium, which might be the same as the town manager pays for 10%. Whereas the district's approach to it might be a little more equitable for potentially all the employees.
Interesting.
Just something to consider. Thank you.
It's funny, I read that too, and I didn't catch that subtlety that it was percentage of salary, not percentage
Yeah.
of premium. All right, anything else?
A motion?
Anybody have the motions for the executive session, or
We got
motion, or is there only
It's
one?
one, yeah. Make the motion that the select board enter into an executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee in accordance with 1 VSA section 313A3 to include the town manager, HR director, and deputy manager.
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Don. We don't have any reason to come back.
Nope.
So we will adjourn from upstairs. So Scott, you're free to go when we're done here, and we won't be coming back to the online meeting because won't be making any motions other than to adjourn. So any other comments, discussion? All those in favor of entering executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. We'll head upstairs. And thank you all. Thank you for those who participated this evening. And see you next time.